Hillary Clinton was in Michigan. Donald Trump continued to reset his campaign today. It was in Florida, meeting with influential conservative pastors and appealing for stronger support from the crucial evangelical voting bloc. Now, a key selling point, a repeal of a law that restricts tax-exempt churches from engaging in electoral politics. Take a listen.
We'll be able to terminate the Johnson Amendment, and you'll have great power to do good things. And religion will start going, instead of this way, I mean, Christianity. When you think of what's happening, you look at the numbers. I talk about Sunday school. People don't even know what I'm talking about anymore.
So did Donald Trump do enough to help convince this major block of voters and to help them get the parishioners out to the polls in November? Well, let's bring in Tony Perkins. Tony, thanks a lot for joining the show.
Good to be with you, Charles. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, the polls are pretty strong for Donald Trump with respect to evangelicals, but what it looks like is he's going to need an extraordinary turnout from them, not just in the voting booth, but also to get out the vote for him.
Yeah, not quite supernatural turnout, but a very strong turnout he'll need. You know, what he needs is to connect with evangelicals, and I have to give him credit. He is working very hard. You know, he did not have overwhelming support. He had good support, but not overwhelming support in the primaries. But he's connecting with them on two very important issues. You just mentioned one of them today. He said, without religious liberty, we have no liberty. He's connecting with a constituency that increasingly is feeling the attack on religious liberty across this country, whether it's a football coach denied the ability to pray by himself silently on a football field after a game, it's a baker or a florist simply wanting to live by their faith. But then he's also connecting with them about the Supreme Court and driving home the fact that this election will determine the makeup of the Supreme Court for another generation. And that doesn't take a whole lot of explanation to evangelicals to let them understand what's at stake here. When you look back to 1973, Roe v. Wade, 50 million unborn babies lost their lives in this country. And then, of course, last year, the court redefining marriage and throwing out 50 million votes of Americans.
So, Tony, we know that the country, now I'm not sure if the laws have superseded the direction of the country or vice versa, but it feels like younger folks are not only, I wouldn't say rejecting religion, but not embracing it to the degree that it once was embraced in this country, but also more in favor of things like abortion and same-sex marriage. How does a presidential candidate deal with that, and what should his role be in promoting those core Christian values?
I agree with a portion of that statement, Charles. What I have found is I've done a lot of work. In fact, I wrote a book end of last year, No Fear, profiling young evangelicals in this country. There's no question that we have kind of young people rejecting the organized church, but not necessarily rejecting faith.
Right.
There's a stronger strain of commitment to one's faith among this younger generation than in my generation. Now, they have soured on politics because, you know, you've had promises for generations to end abortion, which, by the way, this generation is overwhelmingly pro-life, more so than their parents. So that's an issue they're very strong on. On human sexuality, they're still kind of a live and let live phase, but as they begin to see the conflict with religious freedom and the freedom to believe and live according to those beliefs, those are changing as well. But it is going to be a challenge reaching those younger people, but you have to realize they're not the ones that vote en masse. It's the over 50 crowd that votes the most. That's the ones that Trump has to reach and turn out in large numbers.
Although ultimately the younger folks have to live with these rules. One thing I think that's hurting Donald Trump is the temperament issue. And I think it impacts him on other things. When people ask about fighting terrorism, economy, things he should be up double digits on, he's not doing as well. But I think overarchingly, it's that one particular issue. Do evangelicals have a problem, or would they like to see him tamp down on the temperamental issues?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, that's why that he's still having these conversations, trying to build a relationship. That's why he didn't have overwhelming support in the primaries. But look, it comes down to two choices. You have Hillary Clinton, who we know exactly what she'll do as president. She'll continue what Barack Obama has done. She will appoint, nominate liberal justices to the courts and to the lower courts. We don't know exactly what Donald Trump will do. We don't completely understand his temperament, but he has been taking the steps to assure people that he will nominate strict constructionist to the courts. Pro-life justice is the only Republican nominee who's ever said that. He's not messed with the party platform, which is the most conservative in history. And he is continuing to have a conversation, even in the general election, with conservatives, core conservatives, which generally are overlooked in the general election. So he's working very hard. I'm optimistic, but you're absolutely right. I think more evangelicals, social conservatives would be comfortable if he kind of dialed back the temperament a little bit and had a, maybe a more Christ-like attitude when it comes to the political realm.
Yeah, well, you know what? Sometime the New Yorker and all of us supersedes that. Tony, thank you very much. And I really appreciate your wise words. They were really great. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Charles.